I'm aware that there are many of you that have found yourself or do find yourself currently in a place where you have yet to find success in that sector or that area that you plan to break out in. And you plan to break out as an established entrepreneur, an artist, student, activist, a professional, and set yourself up as that person that you want to be. That awkward stage in between. But thankfully, there is good news, and it is frustrating, that process. It is hair tearing, but there is good news. When no one knows your name, you hold a rare gift, and that is the freedom to fail spectacularly. That freedom to fail spectacularly, that space, that in between, you should be cognizant and aware that you are as free as you will ever be. Now, what do I mean by that? So, about a year ago or two, I applied to this educational policy think tank. I mean, it was huge, highly selected, and I really put my all into it. I mean, I put my story, my passion, my vision. I was like, yeah, this is like, I want to structure out this event. But I didn't even make the short list. And that period it was a very heart-wrenching period for me. I mean, I felt small, insignificant, incompetent, and all these negative things. But I had to rewrite. I had to pause and think for a second. And that's when something shifted and I realized that, no one is really watching. No one really had like a bet on me and saying, yes, you're supposed to do this. The only person I really had to please at that moment was myself. And there is a power in realizing you don't have to perform for a crowd. Um, and there was a power in that I could always try again. I could put in my all without that zero pressure. And that's when I realized that I could, really start doing anything. I started pitching out, I started reaching out and cold calling people. And I started starting events. Some flopped, some really weren't successful, and some were. And that's how it was. But then at that point, at that period, I realized I wasn't waiting to be seen. I wasn't waiting to just suddenly appear out, but you're just kind of building in the background. And I think that is one of the gifts of the pre-success phase. When you're still unproven, when you're still unknown, that's when you're most free. You can be bold and filtered. You can be raw. You can experiment without the weight of maintaining a reputation. I mean, you look at the Wright brothers, they tested gliders in obscurity. They were bicycle mechanics. No one's going to be in the back like, oh, you're bicycle mechanics. What are you doing testing airplanes? There was J.K. Rowling that wrote Harry Potter as a broke single mother. And I believe that period of pre-success is the most fruitful period that you could ever take advantage of. But at the same time, success can become a trap. The more you achieve, the more you have to protect, and your boldness gets replaced by caution, and your instincts are second guessed by expectation. And before you know it, you're not growing anymore, you're maintaining. And that's when that plateau happens. But you don't need to do that. You can lean into that obscurity, and that I believe can help you even get more established. And that is by acknowledging that you can basically do whatever you want and you can take advantage of that. And no one is going to unsubscribe from your podcast if you have zero listeners. No one's going to come up to you saying, oh, I thought you were different. I thought you were X, but you're actually Z. You don't have the pressure of spectators on you. What you really have to worry about is yourself, which can also become its own problem. I mean, there's this weight that some of us are born into, the quiet rules we inherit to be safe, be practical, don't dream too loudly. And they're passed down like heirlooms wrapped in love and fear, often by those who already survived hardship and who want to protect us from the unknown. And honestly, it's understandable. But then this then shows up in the decisions that you don't make, the ideas that you silence, the dreams that you shrink to fit into someone else's comfort zone. And many of us carry this inherited fear without realizing it, but we don't have to. And that's where I'd like to take on failure as a teacher. And many people are afraid to fail. They're like, oh, what if I fail? What if I'm not good enough? What if I didn't get the thing? I mean, that's perfect. If anyone could say anything about failure, I think I would have a few things to say. And that is that failures aren't dead ends. And oftentimes we treat failure like the enemy, when in truth, it's like data, it's intel. It's like, think of it as a prototype crashing during testing, say for a car. Um, that crash necessarily isn't a defeat, but it's feedback. It's telling you where the joints buckled, where parts need strengthening, what to do differently next time. And each failure maps your limits and, more importantly, the possibilities that you can absolutely achieve. It's not the end. And if you treat it as not the end, that can absolutely become your most honest teacher. And with that, I would just like to call onto you guys to use this moment where you feel like you're not where you exactly want to be, that you find yourself in spaces that you don't necessarily want to be, or you find yourself, striving for this ideal success that you want to enter. And I would say to get there, you have to really do like the crazy, the unthinkable, the bold. I would implore you to explore those ideas that you have, and test out, what capacity that your mind can grow into.